Without any further ado, because I want to try and get as much time for this panel as possible, because we have some tremendous examples of how government in its various forms are truly beginning to leverage mobile technology to provide real-world solutions. Represented on the panel here, we have both state government, local government, and education represented. So starting from my immediate right and working down the table, let me introduce Director George Valverde. He is the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles. He assumed the position on April 4th, 2006. Director Valverde has been in public service for more than 30 years. Focusing on operations and budget issues, he's committed to building the department's recent success in streamlining operations and creating a more custom-friendly DMV. Seated next to him is the CIO, Dr. Bernard Soriano. He is the Deputy Director and Chief Information Officer for Department of Motor Vehicles. Bernard Soriano is the Deputy Director and Chief Information Officer for, I already said that. Why did they put it in twice? He has over 25 years of engineering and management experience in the private sector and public sector. His previous positions included engineering and management at Hughes Space and Communications in Los Angeles, where he designed satellite control systems. So you really were a rocket scientist. He was also the Assistant Technical Director at USGA Research and Test Center in New Jersey. In the public sector, Bernard was the CIO for the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection and the Office of Secretary of State. In addition, he was the Information Technology Task Force leader on Governor Schwarzenegger's California Performance Review. Next to Bernard is Craig Sharton. He is the Downtown and Community Revitalization Assistant Director. Craig has been with the City of Fresno since December of 2008 and was the CEO of the Central Valley Business Incubator. In that role, he opened 2 new facilities, increased private funding, and raised $6 million in investment for business. Mr. Sharton is a former Fresno City Council member elected to the District 1 seat in 1987. Following his term in office, he attracted investors to the Security Bank and T.W. Patterson buildings in downtown Fresno, raising $5 million and increasing building occupancy. He later became executive director for 2 downtown revitalization programs in Pleasanton and Hanford, and was elected president of the California Main Street Alliance, an organization that represents 39 of the state's best downtown revitalization programs. Seated next to him is Carolyn T. Hogg, the Chief Information Officer for the City of Fresno. Carolyn became the CIO for the City of Fresno in July of 2007 and manages a budget of over $14 million. Fresno is the state's 5th largest city with 104 square miles and population exceeding 500,000. Fresno serves as the economic hub of Fresno County and California's Central Valley, with surrounding cities predominantly tied to the large-scale agricultural production. It is home to many business incubators, serving as a resource for entrepreneurs and new companies, ranging from environmental engineering to fine arts, with many continuing to become internationally known. Our last 2 panelists are Emmy Phillips, the director at Fresno County Office of Education, in charge of the California Technology Assistance Project, or CTAP. She is currently the state chair, and CTAP is a state-funded organization that supports the integration of technology in K-12 schools and district. There are 11 CTAP regions in California, and each region provides direct services to K-12 administrators, teachers, students, and families. The goal of CTAP funding is to bring K-12 educators to the forefront of how technology can impact teaching and learning. Studies have shown that as teachers become more efficient with technology use in the classroom, instruction becomes more engaging and student achievement and motivation increase. Finally, last but not least, Kathy Felder, a consultant at Kings County Office of Education and the CTAP lead for Kings County. She works for the Kings County Office of Education, where she supports districts with curriculum planning, which includes technology integration, Previous to this, she was instrumental in spearheading one of California's first K-12 mobile device rollouts in Corcoran Unified School District. The one-to-one anytime plus anywhere learning project at Corcoran USD was all about providing student access to technology learning tools within and outside the school day. So first, let me start by asking you to give the panelists a warm welcome. All right, I'm going to start with the director first. If you wouldn't mind, George, could you kind of give us an idea of what the process DMV went through to develop your mobile strategy, and what solutions did it lead to?
Okay. Well, let me start out by saying, you know, in 2006, when I was appointed as the director, I remember my first meeting with my executive team, and I talked about DMV being the DMV of the 21st century. And, you know, I guess everybody looked at me and said, well, we're already in the 21st century, so what do you mean by that? I think they quickly found out. We started updating our website, and we did various things that probably were shoestring type of activities. But when we really started looking at ourselves in a different way was when we did our customer survey in 2007. And what we wanted to know from our customers was, did you know you could do your transaction online? And how many of them came to an office because they didn't know they could do that? And surprisingly, we had 60 to 70% of the customers that we interviewed in our offices that didn't know that they could do the same transaction via the internet. What that did, you know, what that helped us realize was that we had to do a better job of outreaching to our public. We initiated a marketing campaign. You may be familiar with it. Save time, go online. From that, we've seen exponential growth in the amount of internet transactions that we've completed since 2006. In 2008, Twitter came along. Now, we really didn't know what to do with Twitter. We thought, well, here's a way for us to interact with customers, and we quickly became, you know, established our own Twitter account. I remember doing a few tweets when I first, you know, logged on. But, you know, I was just looking at my Twitter account the other day, and I think it was like 500 days since my last tweet. So, but, you know, we had a group of 20-somethings. In fact, Derek Chan is sitting right over there, tweeting as we speak, who started monitoring tweets and seeing, you know, how many people were talking about DMV. And we found out there was a base out there who had things to say. Not always pleasant, sometimes wrong, but certainly something to say about DMV. What we observed was that they gave us an opportunity to respond to these tweets, to present information to customers about what DMV is doing, where we're at, what are the wait times. Did you know that we are, you know, available to serve you in different ways? What we've seen over the years is that we've increased the number of people that follow us and followers that we have. You know, since then we've adopted, you know, iPhone app, the Android app, and recently we launched a new DMV Now smartphone app. Some of the things that, you know, I'm very enthused about is just recently I was visiting an IT vendor, and I was observed in looking at the work area that, you know, in the work area they had monitors that were providing constant tweets to the business relative to what people were saying about them. And just recently in our work area, we incorporated the same, you know, concept so that our employees can see what people are saying about DMV. What that means to me is that, you know, we have a closer relationship with our customer. trying to appreciate what is our customer's need and how can we better serve our customer. We're continuing to improve on our internet services, but we're also looking at how we can better utilize technology, whether it's Twitter, the iPhone, smartphone, even Facebook, to serve our customers.
So the way we set up our panel, I truly wanted to look at both sides of the fence because the attendees today represent both the technology community and the business community. So now that George has identified some of the issues from Department of Motor Vehicles business issues and challenges that they had to face, I'd like for Bernard to speak to the CIO's side of the fence of getting the tweets or emails from George that says, what do we do now, to how that becomes an actual solution. So Bernard?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having us on the panel. I appreciate being given the opportunity to address this topic. When we at the DMV started looking at our mobile applications, or at least starting to develop the mobile apps, it was part of an overall strategy, as the director had mentioned. We looked at where were our customers and where were the needs that our customers have relative to being given up some services. We already had applications on the internet. You could register your or renew your vehicle registration. You could renew your driver license. You had several other internet applications, but they were mainly based on your PC. They were internet apps. They weren't mobile apps. In going through a strategic planning session, we tried to take a stab at looking into the future about how our customers were going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And from all indications, it looked like that more and more people were going to be accessing the internet using mobile devices. In fact, just 2 years ago, the statistic was that by 2017, more people are going to access the internet using a mobile device than a standard computer. We saw this morning that the statistic is now moving towards 2014, so it's very much sooner. I mean, all of us are now walking around with smartphones that we use as a primary device to get onto the internet. So we recognized that at the time, and we decided that we need to make our applications, which are on the internet, more available and more applicable for the mobile space. And so that's how we rolled that out. We rolled out DMV Now back in 2010, 2 years ago, and we've got almost 200,000 downloads of that application, both on the iPhone and the Android. And it's something that we're very proud of, and it was something that was done, as George said, by people that took it upon themselves to learn the technology and be able to develop it in-house. And so it was something that we grew in-house and we developed, and we very much took ownership of it. Some of the things that we're looking at for the future, we're looking at moving those mobile apps into more of a transactional application. Right now, to do some sort of transaction, you have to get on the internet using your mobile device, and we'd like to, in the future, include that on the actual app itself. We're looking at gaming technologies and how gaming technologies could be integrated into our systems. The Connect device by Microsoft has no physical interface. You interface with the computer using body movements, and that's certainly something that we could try and incorporate either for workforce efficiency or maybe using that technology to serve up to our customers. They just released a software development kit, and so that's certainly something we're going to explore. We're also looking at e-readers. We have our driver handbook, and we're looking at publishing that so that it could be read on either a Kindle or a Nook or even on the iBook. And we're very close to having that technology available. And not just the text, but also embed some more rich content into that space, such as maybe embed some videos into the driver handbook. Of course, we constantly look at privacy and security and how that plays a role in the mobile space. But all of this is wrapped around our strategic goal of enhancing services to our customers.
So a quick show of hands, if I were to divide you between technologists versus business executives or business people in the room, could I get a show of hands for the business people that are in here? So about 30%. That's excellent. Truly, you all are the inspiration. You all are the need identifiers. The technologists tend to be the problem partner solvers because they need both of you to do that. To that end, I want to introduce Craig, and Craig's, I guess, focus for community revitalization has taken a track that basically forced you guys to come up with a mobile solution, as it were, right? Why? How did mobility fit into the solution so that was the solution?
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here today. It's an honor, and I always like to start by saying to our friends that live on the coast that Fresno is in the state of California, and it's actually the 5th largest city in the state. We have about 1.6 million people in our commute shed, and we're one of the places in the state where you can golf in the morning and ski in the afternoon if you'd like. You should come visit us sometime if you haven't done it already. Fresno is a place that is interesting with contrasts. We have the greatest number of water technology companies headquartered in Fresno, more than any other city in North America. At the same time, the Brookings Institution pointed out that we were wrestling with the greatest concentrated poverty of the top 55 cities in the United States, all concentrated, or mostly concentrated around our downtown area. So we have opportunities, and we certainly have our challenges, and we're addressing those in a way that is starting to bring us quite a bit of attention. And we're following best practices in a lot of ways, but we also believe we are creating some as well. Last summer, we were included in a White House initiative called Strong Cities, Strong Communities, where the White House is embedding people from agencies, federal agencies, and they're coming and working and opening offices within City Hall. Fresno is the only city west of the Mississippi to have that designation and that coordination with the federal government. And we're also the only city with a Republican mayor to get that designation, which tells you how dynamic our mayor is. Getting that focus has created an opportunity for us to do things in Fresno to get help, but it's also been an opportunity for us to instruct the rest of the federal government on the needs of local government. And as we're shrinking, the thing that we're finding within our division, which includes code enforcement, historic preservation, parking management, a number of other functions, is that the only way we can overcome the shrinking of government is with technology, with training, and with teamwork. Those three things are all enhanced by technology. So we know that we can enhance training and we can enhance communication that allows our teams to function better within our division, within our city, but also with our partners, nonprofits, community agencies, and other local governments. So we already recognize the need. Last May, we changed our code enforcement division into something called community revitalization. So it was a change in name, but also a change in focus. And for you business folks in the room, this is an opportunity where we have a problem that needs solving. To go from a code enforcement officer where you recognize a code violation and then write a ticket is a fairly simple activity that you can follow up with notices and billing and that sort of thing. But to get involved with community revitalization means that you need to be aware of and communicating with neighborhood groups. You need to be able to solve problems with things other than a ticket book. You need to be coordinating with multiple departments, and you might need to be coordinating with Boy Scouts, or you might need to be coordinating with a university class. You just don't know. So the solutions that are available tend to be single use, and we need to have something that's very dynamic. And we certainly, with the amount of cuts that we've faced, need to be able to keep people out in the field to be productive as possible. So the real person that knows about this is actually sitting over there. Kevin, wave your hand. He's one of the seniors in our Community Revitalization Division, and he's actually creating apps of sorts so that he can do his work out in the field, and he's doing that on his own. So he has already done a lot of the work for you. But he needs to know if there's an elderly gentleman that someone's called in on because he has a broken fence or an unmowed lawn. You know, in the old days, he could have given him a ticket and said, fix it in 18 days. That's not what he wants to do or any of the other folks want to do. But he needs to be able to go to a mobile device and say, who are the people that live here that are involved with the neighborhood association? Or where are the churches in the neighborhood? Or where are the other nonprofits? And be able to quickly link those people up to get the lawn mowed and the fence fixed and painted. So it's a much more dynamic service that he's fulfilling, and it requires much more dynamic tools for him to be able to use and to be efficient. And just to kind of reiterate, we have a model we call the Fresno model for revitalization, and it's fairly complex, but it brings an incredible amount of resources to bear for our job. One circle is the neighborhood, including neighborhood groups, landlords associations, and others. The next circle is all of the city departments, everything from PD to the bus system to certainly code and other issues. And then the other circle that we manage is all of the other agencies. It can be private businesses that want to get involved with neighborhood revitalization. As I mentioned, church, Boy Scouts, our university's been involved in a huge way. And how can he hold all that information and communication in his hands? So our needs to turn around these neighborhoods of concentration poverty transcend just single use. I'll give you another just quick example of something we're doing. We're changing all of the land use in our downtown and in our neighborhoods. We're doing 3 consecutive planning efforts: a neighborhood plan, a downtown plan, and changing our development code. Up to this point, each of these plans has had 3 drafts. We've printed out about 100 of each of those drafts at a cost of about $85 per copy. So every person that's received those drafts, we've already spent about $800 on paper that has been mostly discarded as we've moved on to the next draft. Every person could have already had a mobile device that would have been much more interactive and much more useful for comments or for layering information on. So some of the things we're doing right now when we can't say that we can afford these new technologies, when you look at some of the practices we have, I'm convinced that we can be much more efficient, save money, and keep our folks much more productive out in the field.
So obviously a huge vision, a huge goal. And I can imagine, here's Carolyn Hogg sitting there managing day-to-day IT operations, and Craig stops by our office and says, I've got this little idea that I want some help with. So once you received this request, Carolyn, what kind of technology hurdles did you have to overcome to make it a reality?
Well, first off, Craig wasn't the first one that came by my office, and that really told us how much interest was in the city about going to mobile devices. So in order to help Craig succeed with his new business model, we realized that we needed to be able to get immediate information into the hands of the field staff, as well as information into the residents' hands. And so it was time to create a mobile tablet feasibility study. And by doing so, we invited all the stakeholders, multiple departments participated to talk about what type of mobile device and mobile application are they looking at and interested in as a priority. So fire, public utilities, police, finance, budget, airports, transportation, we all met in the initial meeting, and we decided as a group to focus on community revitalization as our first pilot project. We realized that this is going to be a lengthy process because one device is not going to meet all the needs of all the departments, because you have fire who's out there physically will probably need a different type of device than a budget person. So we established a project charter, identified the goals, everything that goes along with a project charter. We really wanted to identify set standards that we all could live with, and still provide 3 or 4 different options to our departments that we support. The challenge was, where do you start? Because everybody has a personal preference, and with that, multiple devices have different operating systems. So that was our initial challenge. So we decided to go and test 4 different mobile tablets and actually put them in the hands of the different departments that showed interest. And we already found that certain devices that we thought we were going to like just did not work at all with existing applications. So that was our first aha moment. Funding also, was a challenge, and deciding whether, once we decide on the device, whether we build applications in-house, do we work with the state of California, look at their templates first, do we purchase? So that's an ongoing task that the team is evaluating. Now, this project is in its infancy, so we are only about 2 months into it, so we have a lot of growth that we're still expecting to do as a group. But the outcome was to have enough of an understanding of the mobile environment so that we can determine citywide that, yes, these devices can be configured, they can be maintained, they can be administered to multiple departments, so that when we do make that investment, it's going to be for the right reasons. What we see already, the biggest benefit to a mobile application is, our motto is making work life easier, and that's exactly what we're concentrating on, is to allow that field person to interact with the community, but also at the same time do their work that they need to do out in the field and not have to come back to the office to complete their task. The other opportunity that we have was to really look at the services that we provide to our public and see how we can improve them. Public sector has kind of been beaten up lately, and this was a real opportunity to look at Craig's vision and see, well, this is how we used to do it. Now this is how we're going to embrace our community, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to work with you, and the only way that's going to be successful is to have that information right at the fingertips. My biggest aha moment of this project is, I've been in IT for many years, and my office used to always be in the basement because IT people never had to interact with anyone. You just spit out the reports and you were done. And the whole world of IT has changed now. You're no longer in the basement, you're no longer in your office, you're not even staying within City Hall. You're out in the community, you're interacting with the residents, we're partnering with multiple agencies. So the whole technology transformation is happening right now.
Which is a challenge, speaking as an old nerd myself. A lot of us went into IT originally so we didn't have to deal with people. But that's changing, i.e., I think that's why Facebook and Twitter were created, because it was a nerd's way of interacting with human beings. Anyway, following them, we're going to have a tag team between Emmy and Kathy that are going to explain then how the education arena is beginning to leverage these technologies and what the education community is doing to develop 21st century skills. And I was interested in that phrase itself, 21st century skills, meaning what?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Before I go right into that answer, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Emmy Phillips, and I actually work for the Fresno County Office of Education, so I get to take advantage of some of the great services that the city of Fresno offers, and the DMV. I'm actually the state chair of the California Technology Assistance Project, and that's just basically in other duties as assigned. It's not in an official position. But the California Technology Assistance Project is a state-funded organization that operates out of the California Department of Education. And that funding goes into 11 regions. So our state's broken up into 11 regions, and I'm actually the Region 7 director. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about that background, because that'll kind of set the stage for where we're going to go, and Kathy is going to talk a little more in detail about how that funding actually impacts teachers in the classroom. Just a little background about myself. I was a middle school teacher for 5 years in Fresno County, and then the last 8 years I've been an administrator working in this capacity. And one of the reasons I got into this position, because I didn't know this was a job when I was teaching. This actually is just one of those things that pops up and you think, I didn't know I could become an instructional technology director when I grow up. But that's kind of the idea, that we are preparing students for careers that haven't been invented yet. So when we think about and we hear about all of these great tools that are available on the mobile devices and applications that are coming out, in education, we need to be really forward-thinking, and we need to be preparing our teachers to prepare our students for these types of career fields. So just a little bit more about CTAP. Since the 1990s, CTAP has been funded by the CDE, and currently we have over 260,000 public school teachers in California. And so it's our charge to train them and to get them prepared for these 21st century skills. And it's a really interesting thing that happened as we started going through that effort. And there's an author by the name of Mark Prensky. He actually wrote an article 10 years ago. It was published in 2001. You may have heard about it. It's called Digital Immigrants, Digital Natives. And so an interesting phenomenon kind of popped up, and it's the idea that teachers are digital immigrants and our students are digital natives. And it's true. I mean, if you can't figure out how to use your cell phone, you just give it to one of your kids. And they can figure it out pretty quickly. And so that was happening in classrooms, and of course, that's going to cause a lot of our teachers to get apprehensive and, wait a second, I'm not knowledgeable about this, and I can't control this whole paradigm here. This is a paradigm shift for me. This is change. My students know more than I do. That's not normally how it happens in education. And so that's what we were dealing with, administrators were dealing with. Actually, we're even dealing with that with administrators, to be honest with you. But now here we are 10 years later, and we're still dealing with that. But it's getting a lot better. And what we're finding is, yes, our students are more proficient when it comes to tech skills than their teachers most often, but teachers are catching up. We've got a lot of young teachers entering the workforce, and they are digital natives, actually, many of them, and so they're used to the technologies. They go right into the classroom, and they want a projector, they want a laptop, they want access to all of these cool devices because it's what they're used to. So some of the things that our teachers and our students are using today in the classroom that really help emphasize 21st century skills, and just to give you a brief definition, 21st century skills can be digital literacy skills, like what were discussed earlier in our keynote, digital ethics, How do I conduct myself online? How do I become a good digital citizen? These are topics that we're covering with teachers today so that they can cover with students. What are some of the cyber safety issues we have to deal with? What is intellectual property? What are reputable sources online that we can use for research purposes? How do I protect my identity? These are all things that are not always discussed at home, and as a result, not being discussed at school. But that conversation has been ongoing for about the last 10 years, and we're really making gains there. So some of the tools that help us really increase the use of 21st century skills are mobile apps. Twitter is actually becoming quite popular among teachers and administrators. We have teachers who are connecting with other teachers all across the country and the world. They're creating their own personal learning communities and networks. They're sharing strategies. They're sharing websites and resources that they've found. You might, if you're a math teacher, you might, follow the STEM initiatives. You might follow the National Science Foundation grant updates. So those types of things are really helping our teachers become more aware of the resources that are available. We also have one-to-one programs that are popping up in schools. Some of you might have students, your own children, who are in schools where interactive whiteboards are being used. There are some really great tools called student response systems, which are clickers, where the students can respond immediately so that the teacher doesn't have to go home and grade worksheets, but they can get the instant data. And kids love that because they get instant feedback. So imagine if you were sitting, go back to school, right, in your head. If you think about what it was like when you were a student sitting in the classroom and you just took a quiz or a test, you usually had to wait for the teacher to grade all of them before you got them back, maybe, if you got them back. And that might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, it depends, because teachers are busy people. They're planning for the next day. And so the beauty about student response systems and other types of technologies like that, and using mobile devices in the classroom, is the opportunity for instant feedback, instant data. Kids automatically get to see what pops up on the screen. How did I do? That's huge. That's really powerful for kids. So what we want to do now is, I'm going to turn to Kathy here in a second, and we're going to share with you kind of a real-world example of how this is being implemented in a very rural part of California, Kings County. This was actually one of the first, or the first iPad deployment at a school district in California. And so Kathy's going to tell you about that now.
So basically what we did was take all the technology that we had in the classrooms, and we knew that because we were in a rural setting, Corcoran, you talk about Fresno, Corcoran's about an hour south of Fresno. It's about 4 hours from San Francisco and 4 hours from LA. So completely rural area. Our students don't often leave the town, so they've probably never been to the beach, the mountains, and so on and so forth. And we were providing all of this technology through CTAP and different grants and funding sources to our students, but at 3:15, they weren't able to do anything. And when you're engaging students all day long and you hand them a worksheet for homework, do you really think they want to do it? It's not going to happen, and it wasn't happening. And we had discipline issues. We have about 3,300 students in Corcoran. About 85% of them are socioeconomically disadvantaged, and we have about 30% English language learners. And so we really needed to find a way that we could reach these students and get them the mobile devices that they needed. And kind of listening to some of the keynotes today, I kind of now know why I'm here, because I really didn't know at first, why are we bringing education into this government local business sector? But I see it now because I really do see the connection between mobile devices and giving them to the students. They are the future, and they need to be college and career ready, because you guys are working in businesses that we're providing the students for you, and so we need to make sure that they're ready. With that rollout, it was the first of its kind in the United States, actually, not an iPad rollout, but we actually provided a pilot program for 6th grade students, and 246 graders received an iPad and a wireless router. So they not only had the device, they also had anytime, anywhere access to learning. It did increase our student engagement, it increased our test scores, it decreased student discipline, And within that, I say wireless router, it was filtered through our county. And so our county came in and saw the initiative that we were trying to provide to our students, and they partnered with us, and they provided filtered wireless access for our students. So for a nominal fee, we were able to provide every 240 students with the wireless internet access. And I don't know if the map can come up, but if you see, we have about 10,000 people that live in the town, not counting the 2 maximum security prisons. So of all those people that are covered, you will notice where the infiltration of the WiMAX routers are within the students. So each student gets the device. Right now it'll connect about up to 5 devices, and so the students are using them on their device, but it's also increasing parent, student, teacher communication. In addition to providing them with the iPad, we also provided them with a Google Apps and Education account, so they had access to email, which most of their parents didn't even have access to email. So to be able to provide that instant communication, we were getting questions answered on homework. Parents were able to check agendas because of the calendaring feature in Google. So it wasn't just one magic bullet. It was a combination of about 4 or 5 magic bullets and a lot of hard work and dedication to know that we have to prepare our students to be 21st century learners. And so just a little bit about the WiMAX router. That's a picture of it. It looks exactly like an iPhone. It's probably a little bit smaller, and we customized a case for it so that it would fit inside of the case so that they could Velcro it shut and they didn't have to worry about it. So anytime they were out within the community, and actually the umbrella was about 10 miles. So from the city center where it was at our district office, the WiMAX signal went out about 10 miles in radius. We also gave them over 100 educational apps, iBooks, and then free content to their student textbook online. So it was really a package deal for all of our students. And it was actually so successful that the FCC licensed Kings County to provide this countywide. And so now they're working, and hence you saw that I moved to the county. I'm now helping the county with a couple more rural school districts that are wanting to implement this in their school districts as well. And we were able to do that because of the FCC approval, because of the success of the Corcoran project. So,
I'm so jealous. I mean, seriously, if we'd had that growing up, I wouldn't be doing this for a living. All right, we're going to do questions, and we have our Vanna White out in the audience with the microphone. If you have a question for any panelist up here, please raise a hand, and they will find you depending on what side of the room you're on. While we are identifying, go ahead, raise your hands. You guys are allowed to ask questions. While we are identifying the first brave soul to ask the question, while we were sitting here, the director happened to show me his iPhone in which he's receiving tweets about people's excitement about DMV's monitoring of Twitter. It indicates how real-time your interaction with the public can become. I think that's part of what we were discussing during lunch. I was astounded by the fact that, being a Twitter novice, that because DMV had set up an account, I think you called it a hashtag, they were actually notified when people were tweeting online about issues they were having with DMV, and then when DMV responded, it kind of blew them out of the water. So, you know, you walk that fine line between George Orwell's, 1980, whatever that, and the Big Brother syndrome versus government looking out for the constituency. Whose idea was it to begin tweeting? Is that right?
Well, as I said, I think it was. It came to me as a pilot from our communications program, and that's where a number of our 20-somethings reside. And these are, if you look at who's using technology in the social environment, either texting or tweeting, it's the 20-somethings. And so what we did is we did basically a pilot. And we had to put some parameters around it to ensure that we had privacy and security, a governance process, ensure that whatever we were tweeting was within the context of what was reasonable from a government agency. So a lot of those things go into maintaining and securing a tweet account within the Department of Motor Vehicles.
So Bernard, can you share with us how you were inspired to pursue this?
Well, as George said, there are a number of different factors that led to the DMV establishing a Twitter account as well as a Facebook account. As again he mentioned, the folks within the communications programs area, but also our public affairs deputy director, Mike Mirando, his daughter was bending his ear about some social media venues, and my kids were bending my ear about some social media venues as well. And so there was this upsurge of pressure to have DMV reach out in different ways. And so we established the accounts, and we saw that as more than just a communication vehicle with our constituents, but we saw that as potentially a service delivery option. And right now, as the director described, if someone does have an issue or if someone wants to tweet a message on Twitter, we have staff that actively monitor that and respond accordingly. And of course, we had to set up a whole infrastructure around that. We needed to have rules of engagement so that the people that are monitoring and are responding know how to do that in a professional manner, because as they're interacting, it's for everyone to see. So there needed to be some constraints around how that interaction happens, and so we developed those rules of engagement, and we try and resolve the problem online. And if it's something where personal information is needed, then we redirect that person to a more secure channel and then get their problem solved. And oftentimes, what happens is they not only get their problem solved, but they will tweet out their experience, and they'll blog about their experience. And we've gotten so much press about this that it's phenomenal. It really speaks to how the department is changing and how the department is adopting new tools and new technologies to better serve Californians. And I think it's just wonderful. I think it's part of us trying to develop some metrics around these programs so we can gauge the success. And I think, Russ, you have some examples of some blog entries that speak to how we've really reached out to customers and improved our service delivery.
And it was interesting. They showed me this at lunch, and it was extremely humorous, especially to somebody that's 56 years old, because when I was born, black and white TV was cool. So to imagine this individual that's talking about, he's blogging about his surprise that DMV is actually a part of the 21st century. I guess he tweeted originally that he was frustrated with trying to get on the DMV site, and he tweeted that. And to his surprise, DMV responded with the message, "The DMV website is up and running. For technical support assistance, please call," their phone number, right? He says, "Wow, I was a bit stunned by the California's DMV was savvy enough to start a Twitter account. They gave me an 800 number. Good, not great service. I followed up with a tweet that was a more informational tweet. I've lost my car registration form. What do I do? It's due in February." The tweet was responded with a request for a direct message so they could contact me directly. His response, "Imagine that. DMV wants to talk to me and they're going to call me proactively." It speaks to society's desire for government to provide a level of service that government is just now becoming aware of the demand. From a revitalization standpoint, why does your code enforcer have to go out and find the yards that need to be mowed or cleaned up or whatever? Why not be able for the citizenry to tweet about an area that might need help, and either collectively within their own neighborhood watch group respond to that, or reach out to the city to see if the city can lend resources or help organize people, right?
Absolutely. And we do that to a large extent. We do have great ISD department and a great web service, and our mayor is an active tweeter, as am I. I mean, it helps in ways that you can't even imagine. I mean, part of my responsibility is downtown revitalization. So I can go to any downtown business, and while I'm there, check in, show a picture of the owner, show a picture of a product, and I become a walking marketing firm for every one of the downtown businesses that we're trying to promote. When I started in downtown revitalization, in my first job, our database was, we kept a copy of typed labels, and every time we wanted to do a mailer, we would just copy onto new labels, and every time a business went out, that was one less business that got information. So when you talk about the ability to change, and now this Friday we're doing an event at a downtown business that we decided to do last week, and we have 3,000 people invited on Twitter, and on Facebook, another 600 or so on Twitter, and listservs and others that I can do from home, or I can do while I'm here listening in the back, but in any meeting that I might attend, I can be getting the word out about things that in the past would have been a huge amount of licking envelopes and or having board members deliver flyers.
Let's throw it out to the audience. Oh, sorry.
There's it on? There we go.
There you go.
Yes, for the CTAP project, who did you partner with for the placement of the hardware and the facilities for the WiMAX project?
Are you talking about from the private sector?
Well, did they cooperate? Did they partner with a private sector entity? Who did they partner with for all the hardware?
Who
and
did
where
the
was it placed?
wiring and the provisioning and all that?
Our very innovative county office, actually, believe it or not.
Wow.
The County Office of Education is an E-rate vendor, and because of that was able to provide, and it was back to a signal that could either be sold or kept, and we were one of the few county offices, to my understanding, that kept the signal and then was able to use it for WiMAX routers, whereas a lot of them sold to Clearwire. Yes.
Okay. Once again, 55 years old, don't understand what. Any other questions? Yes. Hold on just a second. It's actually for those people way back in the back.
I have a question for DMV. You described your strategic goals of enhancing services for customers in relationship to the citizens. What are your strategic goals for government agencies as far as data exchange, system connectivity are involved? Example, web services, APIs, say for DMV inquiry, DMV updates. In other words, what is your strategic goal in bringing the government agencies that work with you for the 21st century?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, you know, it's interesting you should ask, because at the end of 2011, we rolled out our communities of interest. And if you go to our website, you'll see that we have communities of interest. And the first one we rolled out was for veterans. And it was timed to correspond with Veterans Day in November. But since that time, we've established, you know, community of interest in various areas. And, you know, that's one of the ways that we establish partnerships. But we also look at, through our regional offices and our offices in the 168 communities that we have throughout the state, to establish those communities of interest. And, you know, they come in various forms, but, you know, if you go to our website, you can see some of those. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, well, we have several strategic goals at the business level, and then tied in with our business strategic plan is our IT strategic plan. At the business level, our very first strategic goal is just as you mentioned, it's to enhance services to our internal and external customers. And along those lines, we want to enhance and promote effective external communication. So that's the general goal. The IT strategic plan speaks to some of the more technical aspects on how we can achieve that, and certainly taking advantage of some new technologies such as mobile technologies, web services, and things of that nature are certainly something that we embrace, and we really want to be able to provide our customers the information that they need in the easiest way possible so they can do their job.
Additional questions? Sherilyn, I sent your helper on an errand. If you can let Soren know that we're also going to be ready to mic him, because we're going to go right from the overview of solutions to the practical implementation of them. But I'd like to clear out the questions first. Okay, who is next? Go ahead.
This question is for anybody in the panel. Does the real effort towards making government more agile depend mainly on cost decisions or on bringing down bureaucratic barriers?
Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, does the real effort towards making government more accessible to the public or more agile depend mainly on cost decisions or budgetary decisions or on bringing down bureaucratic barriers?
So is it a cost function, or is it a business solution function?
And quality of life.
And quality of life. There you go.
I think all of those things come into play. And if you look at state government over the last 5 years, you've seen that the economic condition has significantly impacted departments' ability to operate in the same way. Our mission, our focus has been to streamline government and to provide service in the most cost-effective manner. So in some respects, we've been driven to find more cost-effective solutions. And I think the two things have come together in a way that we've been able to improve services to the customer, but also do it in a more cost-effective way.
I think that's a good point, because we don't do technology just for technology's sake. We very much concentrate on making sure that there is some effectiveness and efficiencies that are gained by the use of technology. And we have to plan that out first before actually rolling something out, and then that way we can measure whether or not what we've just deployed was worth it, was worth the effort put in. And so it's all of the above that you had asked, and it's one that's very tied to what do we want to accomplish.
From an education standpoint?
Yeah, I was just going to comment. Our answer would be pretty much the same as the DMV.
You might want to pull that microphone a little closer to you there.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, our answer is pretty much on par with DMV, but obviously we're public education, so we rely on state taxpayers' dollars, and there's not a lot of that coming in right now, so that's one difficulty. But it's the digital divide. It's, we have rural areas, we have students that need access that don't have access at home. It's just widening the divide. Did you want to add anything to that?
And I think ours is changing people's perception of technology and education, and knowing that we can't wait until our students graduate from high school and go to a technical school to receive the type of training. We have to be providing it for them. A lot of our technology and a lot of the questions I got asked were, how did you fund it? I mean, I get that asked all the time, and then I also get, how do you measure it? And basically, because of the situation that we are in with accountability, we look at test scores and we look at, does it increase student achievement? And we have really taken a good hard look at that. So we're accountable on all aspects because we are public education.
We're just a little bit over time, but I've got one last question for the president then of CTAP. From an aspect, for instance, I live in Folsom, home of Intel, right? Potentially the kids in that area could have a different foundational knowledge of Twitter and Facebook and the internet and access than the kids in Kings County. How do you distinguish where to put your resources, your efforts, design different educational programs, not to mention potentially leveraging the kids in the Intel communities to share their experiences with the kids in the Kings County communities?
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, really it comes down to a moral imperative. What is morally the right thing to do? When we go out and work with schools and the teacher's got that desktop sitting in the back of the classroom collecting dust, or they're using it as a paperweight,
right?
You know, there's a real problem there. Where's the moral imperative here? You've got students that we're trying to prepare for the 21st century, and it's here. So we need to, you need to stretch yourself a little bit. You need to start figuring out how you're going to integrate this into the curriculum. How are you going to make this effective for your instruction and for their learning? And so it really comes down to having that hard conversation. It does start with administration. It does start with good visionary leaders. And that's really where you go from there. It's kind of a top-down issue. In some schools, it's bottom-up, because we've got some rock star teachers out there who are willing to stretch themselves and even invest their own money in some of these tools.
All right. I appreciate you all sticking around, and can we have a round of applause for our panel? They were outstanding. Thank you all very, very much. I really appreciate your time and effort.